If you've used any of these large financial technology companies, MasterCard, Visa, Stripe, Bilt, Affirm, Shopify, Mercury, Plaid, or a number of others on this list, your data might have been exposed, you might be hacked right now, and you need to watch this video to find out what to do. Good morning. Unfortunately, our situation with Yotta Bank, with Evolve, with Synapse, and all those new fintech companies that were involved with the collapse of Synapse and all that terrible stuff, it's actually gotten worse. If you used any of these services that were affected, I think you should have gotten an email by now. I've gotten a couple different ones from the couple different services that I've used. But if not, or just in case you're interested, then I wanted to make you aware of the steps that we all need to take to protect our credit, because there has been a security breach, and that's been at Evolve Bank, the partner bank that a lot of the new fintech companies were using to run their service through. They actually got hacked. And so for us to maintain the security of our accounts and our identities, we need to actually take some action. So I wanted to go through that today because I'm just doing this for the first time in my life. I've never had to do this before. I've never had this kind of thing directly affect me like this. And so as is customary here, I want to share my experience with you so that we can learn this together. So if we rewind the clock a little bit, back on May 19th, that was when Yotta started having ACH issues, and basically Synapse middleman role was completely broken at that point to where they shut down and they stopped facilitating transactions between the core banks and all the other companies that were using this. So this is not limited to Yotta. This is not limited to Prize Pool. There was 100 different companies that were all using Synapse as a middleman to access banking services until 5/19, in which case they stopped doing that. And this website that I'm showing you is Yotta's actual update page, where basically every day they update us on what's happening with their lack of payment processing, with their lack of transactions, with our lack of our accounts and our money. The most recent update from them on this update log is saying that certain U.S. senators have basically stepped in and sent letters to Synapse to say, hey, people need to get their money back, so you need to get this happening right away. And then they're claiming in the most recent update on 7/3, significant progress should be made regarding the reconciliation and release of customer funds. So they're hopeful, but they're probably also just doing damage control to try and remain hopeful in the midst of this, which is really terrible for them. But the first I heard about this data breach was actually through Prize Pool, because Prize Pool also used Evolve Bank. So there was a cybersecurity attack, and the hackers got both user and bank account information. And so it was a pretty minor email that they sent back on Wednesday, June 26th, saying that, like, it wasn't very clear in exactly what we need to do. They're saying Evolve has resources if you want them, but there's nothing specifically told to us as far as what we have to do until now. And 3 days ago, I got this email from Yotta that's saying, hey, we had this data breach happen, which they definitely lag behind Prize Pool in terms of notifying us of this. And they get specific enough to say things like users' names, social security numbers, bank account numbers, and contact information have been leaked. And then they poke a little bit of fun at Evolve and say, because Evolve has frozen payment processing, it's unlikely to pose a risk to you because no one can do anything anyway. The accounts, the underlying accounts that would be able to be stolen and taken advantage of are frozen. And so as of right now, they can't access that money and do anything with it because it's frozen for everyone, including the hackers. They couldn't do anything if they wanted to. But then thankfully, Yotta actually gives us a huge list of recommended actions. And so the threat actually goes way beyond anybody who was using what they felt was a new fintech company. Because I've gotten some pretty critical comments in these other videos saying, well, who's stupid enough to use one of these new fintech companies? Why don't you just stick with the normal whatever companies? Well, some of those massive financial companies were also affected. We're talking about Bilt, Affirm, Shopify, Mercury, Plaid, MasterCard, Visa, Stripe, and others. So even if you're a financial Luddite and you wanted to stick with the standard operating people, you probably have used Plaid. Odds are good, or Shopify, or MasterCard, or Visa. These are major players in the fintech world. And so they apparently have connections to Evolve. And that means that anyone who's using those services may also have had their accounts exposed and your information exposed. So Yotta then suggests that not only do we freeze our credit file at the 3 major bureaus, but we also freeze our credit at specialty bureaus. And if I'm honest, I'd never even spent any time paying attention to specialty bureaus before, but they link us to this PDF, this consumeraction.org download list of all these other bureaus that you could potentially reach out to and freeze your credit so that nobody's able to essentially set up a new account. Wow, there's a lot. If you want to look at your credit report and see if there's been any new kind of inquiries or hits that you're not aware of, you can get it on freecreditreport.com. And then if you do that and you think that you're a victim of identity theft or fraud, then you should probably file a report with the FTC or law enforcement authorities. Then they say to remain vigilant, and you can also put a free credit fraud alert on your credit file. And that's where I wanted to dive in a little bit more and try and figure out what the difference is between those two things, because what they've recommended are two very separate kind of actions. You've got credit freezes, and then you've got fraud alerts. And so even right now, before anybody steals our identity or before anybody tries to buy a race car in our name with our credit, we can actually place a credit freeze. And so what that means is nobody can open a new credit account while the freeze is in place. Then the main difference with the fraud alert is if you think there's been some fraudulent activity happen, then you can set this up and it'll make it harder for someone to open a new credit account in your name. Like they've got to do more work to verify who you are before they're able to do that. And by default, a fraud alert just lasts 1 year. Thankfully, it's free to set this up, and you do it by contacting any of the 3 major credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion. And then that's cool. You don't have to actually call all 3. You contact one of them, and then by the rules, by the regulations, they have to tell the other 2 to place a fraud alert on your credit report too. So that's quite a bit different than the credit freeze, because you have to contact each of the 3 credit bureaus to say, hey, freeze my credit. Don't let anything new happen here. And there's no standard duration for this. So it's going to last until you remove it. It's going to stay there in perpetuity until you say, hey, turn it back off. But the cool thing about this that I didn't realize until I read this article on Experian's website is even whenever you have that freeze set up, what they say here is that lenders who you already have an existing account with, they'll be able to access your credit file. So they'll be able to continue doing business with you if you already have that line of credit set up. So it doesn't mean you've got to shut down everything you've ever borrowed or not be able to use your credit cards or whatever. From what I'm interpreting from reading this, I've never done this before myself. It seems like everything should be happening business as usual that's already set up. It's only the new stuff that'll have the kibosh put on it, and no one can actually set up a new account for you. And so it's not a total freeze, because they say even if you've got to apply for a new job and they run your credit for your job, that can still happen. Your insurance underwriting can still happen. You can still get background tests, tenant screening, child support enforcement. You can do other kind of assessing or verifying if it's not directly related to credit. There's a few different things that still work, if you will. So it's not a 100% credit freeze, which makes sense. I mean, this is a little bit of a relief to me, because whenever I initially read that, I thought, oh, great. So that means that you're just cutting off any access to the credit world. Thankfully, it's not that. It seems like potentially the easier thing to do is to freeze your credit report, because it's going to hit all 3 of the main bureaus just with one point of contact, and it's going to warn lenders that you're at risk of fraud, and it's going to make them do extra work to verify who you are. And I haven't decided what I'm going to do. I guess it's the 4th of July right now, so I can't do anything today because I'm sure they're all closed. But tomorrow morning, I'm going to do one or both of these just to try and prevent anything nasty from happening to us for the next few months. Now, if you do need to then apply for new credit, you're going to have to unfreeze your credit report. So I don't know if that means you lift it temporarily, you apply for whatever the credit thing is that you need to do, like you're buying a car or a house or something, and then once that's through, you put it back. I don't know how long we need to be doing this. How long might a hacker wait and sit on this information until they decide to go and do something with it? I don't know. But thankfully, the process should be pretty quick, because if you do it online or by phone, the agencies only have 1 business day to freeze your credit report. So it's going to happen right away as soon as you need it to happen. It's pretty immediate. By mail, it's a lot slower. You got to wait for the thing to get there. Then they get the information, then they process it in 3 business days. That could be, a week or more, who knows, before that actually happens. So I'm going to do it either online or by phone. And then the unfreeze requests are really fast, within the hour of online or on the phone. And again, by mail, it's 3 business days. So for me, the online or by phone method's for sure going to be the one that I use. But I just hate seeing this kind of thing happen. I mean, this is such a pain for all of us. It puts us at huge risk. And it's not like we put ourselves out there financially and did anything really reckless with our money to use these kinds of new accounts and new services. I mean, they seemed reputable enough. How can you know what's going to happen in the future? We don't have a crystal ball. And even if you didn't use Prize Pool and Yotta, you still could have been affected with MasterCard or Visa or Stripe or whoever. So it's just wild that this kind of thing can happen, and can happen so quickly and affect so many people. If you do want to wait and see if you were compromised or not, then Evolve Bank has apparently told Prize Pool that they are going to be directly notifying each individual whose personal information was affected, and then give you 2 years of free credit monitoring and identity theft protection. So that's going to start happening on July 8th. And then Prize Pool doesn't just say what you can do, they actually recommend implementing a credit freeze. So this is pretty bad. I mean, this isn't the kind of thing I love making a video about, but this is part of our financial life. Like in investing, one of the big rules is don't lose money. That's like rule number 1 via Charlie Munger. And this is almost like the credit version of that. Like, don't lose your identity. Don't waste the time and energy and potentially the funds to fund a hacker's well-being. We've got to protect ourselves here. So I hope this video was totally redundant for you, that you've gotten notification of this, that you're well aware of this, and maybe you're even more comfortable than I am doing a credit freeze. But since I've never never done this before. It was a new thing to me that's kind of caught me off guard and actually seems very, very important. I wanted to just bring this to light and call this out so that we all knew that we need to take action on this and do either a fraud alert or a credit freeze or maybe both, just to try and protect ourselves. Just as a resource for you, I'll put some of these links that I've been looking at and showing you on the screen share in the description so you can find this stuff. All I did was basically look up credit freeze on Google, and I went to the FTC website, and then I went to each of the 3 major credit bureaus websites. So I've got a link for Experian, I've got a USA.gov link, a TransUnion one, and an Equifax one. So just to reiterate that one more time, if you just do the fraud alert, which lasts for 1 year, still allows new credit to be opened, you only have to contact one of the bureaus, they contact the other 2, and they just make it a little bit harder for someone to open a new credit account with your name. The credit freeze puts a stop to new credit accounts, but you have to contact all 3 bureaus. I have a feeling that this week and next week, they're going to get a lot of phone calls and emails and inquiries about this because who knows how many accounts this is. I mean, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people potentially. It's going to get really busy over there. I hope they've got a good system for this. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news today. I felt like it was worth talking about because this is important, but I would rather talk about more fun stuff, but this is necessary too. Thank you as always for watching. Thank you members for your support. Have a happy and safe 4th of July, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.